Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Dave Percy, and I'll be hosting this evening's show. Up first, there's a high surf advisory out here for the central and western Arctic coast for Friday evening until 7 p.m. Saturday. High surf expected, pretty good northwest winds, west and northwest winds. Will be building the wave heights up to 6 to 8 feet, which could result in some minor beach erosion. Again, that's out until 7 p.m. Saturday evening. From there, we'll move on to satellite imagery. And we've got a band of clouds right here from the Bristol Bay area, gradually moving eastward into a you can see a circulation here right around the Kodiak Island area, which signifies an area of low pressure. So we've got southerly flow here bringing rain up into the Prince William Sound area, North Gulf Coast, and breaking out a little bit here over the eastern Tanana Valley, 40-mile country, some sunshine this afternoon, but lots of clouds and moisture here through the interior on up to the eastern Arctic coast, and then back to the west. You can kind of see a trough right through here. That's kind of the leading edge of some much colder air dropping in from the northwest. And so we had rain changing to snow up here along the western Arctic coast and becoming a mixed precipitation situation here in the still milder air down across Kotzebue Sound into the Seward Peninsula. And then just an extensive area cloudiness out here over the northern Bering Sea, actually just about all of the Bering Sea on down to the Aleutian areas. And then northwest winds here, resulting in some clearing there in Bristol Bay, and especially along the south side of the Alaska Peninsula. Although Kodiak's still under the influence of that low pressure area, it's moving very slowly. And so periods of showers and rain, cloudy skies today will continue into tonight. And just a lot of low cloudiness out here over the Aleutians. And you can see the edge of the higher cirrus shield there coming onto the picture, that associated with the next system that will be actually increasing the winds quite a bit over the far western Aleutians and the western Bering Sea tomorrow and tomorrow night. On the chart today, had this slow moving front here just edging its way eastward, keeping periods of rain in over the southern southeast coast, and then some showers up here to the north, along with a little bit of clearing possibly there along the north coast, but pick the showers up from about Yakutat, and then a general area of rain here in especially western Prince William Sound, down along the south coast of the Kenai Peninsula, a little more showery in across Kodiak Island, and then a band of rain or showers here, a fairly solid one, although it's narrow, from the northeast Bristol Bay area up across the eastern Kuskokwim Valley to the Alaska Range, northeastward across the Tanana Valley, right up into the upper Yukon, and a little bit mixed precipitation here over toward Arctic Village, or the general vicinity there, and then behind this front, much colder air with snow falling across the central north slope out to the Arctic coast and southward, although the front moving through, becoming a little lighter and a little more showery, but mixture of precipitation today, again, as I mentioned, across from Kotzebue Sound up northward, depending on which side of the front you are on, and just isolated showers there for eastern Norton Sound. Otherwise, basically dry precipitation-wise across the Bering Sea. High pressure dominating centered to the south of the Aleutians, but ridging all the way up into the Russian Far East. And just a breeze out of the north and northwest there, but considerable low clouds and fog, and areas of drizzle to go along with that. Considerable low clouds, areas of fog with drizzle to go in there along that, and just some isolated showers possible here today, or scattered around the eastern Aleutians, and then some fog and drizzle maybe out as far as Atka Island with light winds, very light winds here from about Adak all the way over to Shemya. And for the forecast for tonight, You can see this low really actually doesn't move at all. It just sits there right off the east coast of Kodiak. So clouds, showers, areas of light rain will continue along, or for Kodiak, right up to the North Gulf Coast, with that south-southeast flow continuing to pull moisture right up into the area and along the coastline there, cutting off there in Turnagain Arm and the Chugach Mountains. So dry but cloudy here for northern Cook Inlet on up into the Matanuska Valley. So sit in the valley, you've got a chance of showers. This band here, or boundary, actually could have drawn this in as a front. There's definitely a wind shift along it, and the air is cooler and drier back to the west, but this is gradually shifting eastward, so should make most of the night, probably after midnight, even northern Cook Inlet and the western Kenai Peninsula will see a better chance of precipitation as this pulls eastward there, with rain or showers up across the Tanana Valley, White Mountains on over to about Eagle. Rain and snow, eastern Brooks Range, maybe the eastern Arctic coast, and actually that low just to the north there, keeping it quite windy. Again, winds gusting 35 miles an hour. Could see gusts of 40 miles an hour possibly, especially up toward the central Arctic coast, with periods of snow. Drying out though, Kotzebue Sound, actually the western interior is starting to clear out as well, with that high pressure ridge building inland a little bit there. So that's turning the flow a little bit more offshore. So look for the clearing to start to increase here over the western interior and even down along these Bristol Bay, Kuskokwim Delta coastline. And then that picks up moisture crossing the ocean there. So rain, fog, and drizzle will be continuing there for the Alaska Peninsula, western Alaska Peninsula, on out toward the Fox Islands, maybe the Pribilofs. Really not too bad at all. Light winds, light and variable here under the ridge axis, turning south now and beginning to increase late tonight out over the far western Aleutians. And we'll see for tomorrow, that'll continue as well, with the rain spreading eastward, but maybe just a few showers as far east as Amchitka. Otherwise, maybe a partly to mostly sunny day with light winds for Adak and Atka, and maybe even into the Pribilof Islands. Kind of an optimistic forecast there, going with this much clearing. But you could get some, it could happen, but it'll be more likely to occur here along the southwest coast, up through the central interior, now clearing out into the upper Yukon Valley, with this boundary trough here pulling slowly eastward. Mostly cloudy, showers pretty likely here, south central Alaska, on up across 40-mile country. Far west is Fairbanks Day in the afternoon. Tanana probably will be in the sunshine. Back up here to the north, still quite windy the entire day, with snow for the central Arctic coast. Less wind and less snow as you head south and southwest, becoming mostly mixed here over the northwest interior areas. And for the panhandle, shaping up like this, should be a drier day. You still have this one low off the coast here near the Queen Charlotte, so that'll keep a chance of showers going over the mostly the Prince of Wales Island zone and over the eastern interior. Look for increasing sunshine clearing out to the north there, but Yakutat looking pretty good. Get to about Cordova, and that's where the chances of rain will increase. And for looking at the outlook for the first day of the weekend on Saturday, still an upper level low pulling into Canada, and on the western side of that, several troughs rotating down out of the northwest. So it'll be surges of showers and moisture, clouds and light showers coming with that throughout the day, actually overnight, Friday night through Saturday there. You can see one pushing off to the southeast here, this one dropping into the southern panhandle, and a few scattered showers yet with that last trough moving into the northern areas. Otherwise drying out very nicely here from the Copper River Basin, eastern Tanana Valley. Should be a mostly sunny day, south central Alaska. Cooler though, and so look for a little bit more widespread overnight freezing possibly on Friday or Saturday morning here for south central Alaska. Back to the west, and then this warm front, clouds, rain, warmer air, so snow changing to rain, especially behind the warm front there, rain and fog, milder conditions, quite windy again. Coming in, you can see quite a gradient there with this 1,030 millibar high now in over the southern or southeast bearing, and then lows tracking northeastward out to the west, so quite an area of southwest winds, bringing that milder air and moisture in. This next front swinging some rain and wind into the far western Aleutians. And for temperatures, forecast lows tomorrow morning. We've got, for Friday morning here, we've got Looks like pretty chilly down into the lower teens, 12 degrees forecast for Anaktuvik, otherwise 22 at Arctic Village. Upper 20s, eastern Arctic coast to near 30 on the west side here. Upper 20s into the western interior, and then lower 30s on down to the coastline, with 40s for the Alaska Peninsula and the Aleutians. And for south central Alaska, lows upper 30s to mid 40s for tonight, and lower to mid 40s for the Panhandle, maybe near 50 down south. And for the highs tomorrow afternoon, staying in the 20s here for the Brooks Range, with just 23, the forecast high for Anaktuvik, and then lower 30s on the eastern and central and eastern Arctic coast, and mid to upper 30s on the west side to near 40 over Kotzebue Sound, mid 40s St. Lawrence Island, in across the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta areas, lower 40s say for the McGrath-Nikolai area, eastward across the Tanana Valley, 50s here south central Alaska and the Susitna Valley into Prince William Sound, and looks like upper 50s forecast for portions of the southeast coast. Looking ahead to the lows Saturday morning, and you can see again down into the teens here for the Brooks Range, and even possibly here in the, say, the Denali area, getting chillier with the clearing skies, so 20s or mid-teens to upper 20s, depending on your elevation, cloud cover, winds, that sort of thing, with upper 30s down to the North Gulf Coast. So definitely chillier, chance of maybe some freezing temperatures here, again, south central Alaska, lower to mid 40s for the Panhandle. And then moving to the highs Saturday afternoon, kind of coolish, lower 40s here over the eastern interior, mid 30s though for the Arctic coast, and 40s out to the west with mid 50s, lower to mid 50s south central Alaska, and then down along the southeast coast, 50s.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving into the aviation forecast. For tomorrow, we've got some marginal and Aries IFR here, mostly over the eastern interior, and then kind of slipping back down south central Alaska to Kodiak Island, also Prince William Sound. The IFR here along the Alaska Range on up into the central Tanana Valley. A little bit up there just grazing the Arctic coast, and a band out here over the Bering Sea extending down to the north shores of the Fox Islands. Not too bad over the southeast coast, and not too bad for tomorrow afternoon either there, with mostly VFR and up into the southeast interior. Band of marginal conditions here from 40 Mile Country down across Cook Inlet, again down to Kodiak. VFR on the increase here over the interior. IFR in the increase over the western North Slope on down to the western Brooks Range. And now this band redeveloping farther to the west out over the Aleutians. And then for Saturday morning, we've got IFR mostly along or off the eastern Arctic coast, and then a patch here barely on the north side of the Brooks Range over the eastern North Slope areas, but a really extensive area of IFR now on the south side of the western mountains here, extending all the way down across St. Lawrence Island into the western Aleutians. VFR now over Bristol Bay, into the Kuskokwim Valley mostly, and south central Alaska looking really good, except for some leftover marginal conditions over the Wrangell Mountains. Panhandle, a little bit of IFR along the eastern border, which by Saturday afternoon will be gone. Just some marginal stuff left over. Otherwise, VFR southern Alaska, south of the mountains. Marginal VFR becomes IFR, especially on the upslope areas here of the Brooks Range, and another band along the Arctic coast. And marginal VFR here over the Bering Sea, with another band IFR pushing into the far western Aleutians. And moving on to passes, for Anaktuvik, marginal improving into the late morning to VFR. That same forecast good for Anaktuvik. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal becoming VFR. And same forecast for both rainy and windy, improving in the late morning hours. And Isabel, though, holding marginal, as Montasta should be mostly VFR. Tanita, though, marginal VFR. And Portage, Sternay IFR, and slowly improving throughout the day to marginal. And for the Chilcoot White, VFR. For the freezing levels at the surface here, see 2,000 feet now all the way down into northern Bristol Bay, 4,000 feet well on down to the south, and 2,000 to 4,000 feet over the southeast interior, and 4,000 to 8,000 feet here across the southeast coast. Mostly about 4,000 feet out over the Bering Sea. Icing, none to speak of out here at all, except for the band way out there to the west, staying west of Shimia, even into the late afternoon. Otherwise, a swath here, south central Alaska, northeastward of light to isolated moderate rime, possibly mixed icing above about 5,000 feet, and even a lesser chance of that up here over the northwest, possibly the Arctic coast, and also over the southern panhandle. Jet stream, there's the upper low associated with keeping the moisture in over the southern southeast coast. Main jet well to the south, and then the northerly jet here with cooler, drier conditions, and the main high out to the west, 9,000 feet, showing pretty good winds out of the north here over the southwest interior areas in Bristol Bay, 30 to 40 knots, up to 25 there just south of Kodiak, diminishing back in toward the ridge we have out here over the west, and another strong winds along the Arctic coast and north slope up to 25 along the Brooks Range to 45 knots along the central Arctic coast there. Southeast coast, really light and variable, 5 to 10 knots, and that pattern extends into the Gulf of Alaska. So we're looking at a really weak low here, at least on its eastern quadrant, with the gradient back on the west side, and light winds right up into the central and eastern Alaska range. And 3,000 feet, much the same pattern, a couple of weak systems with weak gradients, so light winds is 5 to 15 knots through the panhandle. 5 to 10 knots here over the southeast interior, light winds northward until you get about to the Brooks Range, and then from there on out to the Arctic coast and into the Arctic. Westerlies picking up to 35 knots, maybe 40 knots for the central Arctic coast, back down to 20 here for the Noatak Valley. And these northerly winds, 25 to 30, 35 knots possibly here at 3,000 feet. On down across the Alaska Peninsula, much lighter winds out here to the west under the ridge, and then a big increase in those southwesterlies over the far western Aleutians, mostly the Komodorskis there, pushing northeastward, but falling back to 20 to 25 for St. Lawrence Island. Turbulence swath here of about light to isolated moderate chop, Bristol Bay into Kuskokwim Valley and the North Slope and Arctic coastal areas, and then also with those winds over the western Aleutians.
Perseus and the Seven Sisters. Welcome to Stargazers. I'm Dean Regas, astronomer from the Cincinnati Observatory.
And I'm James Albury, director of the Kika Silva Pla Planetarium in Gainesville, Florida. Autumn is finally here, and there's a very special constellation that's going to be making its reappearance in the early evening sky in a few weeks.
That's right, James. Perseus the hero is back. And not only is he associated with a great story in the sky, but he also has some interesting celestial company.
What are we talking about? Let's show you.
Okay, we got our sky set up for October 1st at 11 p.m. facing east-northeast. If you look near the eastern horizon, you'll see what looks like a tiny little dipper-shaped cluster of stars, the beautiful Seven Sisters. Now, most people can only see 6 stars here with the naked eye, but if you have really good eyesight or are wearing corrective lenses like 4 Eyes over there, you may even see 7.
And with a pair of binoculars, you can see several dozen. In reality, however, there are over 250 stars here, all much larger than our own sun, and burning much, much hotter. Cosmically speaking, they're not very distant, only 400 light years away, which means that we see the Pleiades not as they exist now, but as they existed 400 years ago. At about the same time Galileo trained a telescope on them and discovered them to be a family of dozens of suns.
Nearby, we have the double cluster, which officially belongs to the constellation Perseus. First, look up and to the right of the North Star, where you'll see the 5 stars that trace out the M-shaped constellation of Cassiopeia the Queen. Then, just to the right of Cassiopeia, you'll see 2 faint, fuzzy, Q-tip-like objects. And if you are far away from city lights, you'll notice that they are embedded in the river of light we call the Milky Way.
These 2 dim, fuzzy blobs are called the double cluster of Perseus. Each has about 100 more stars than the Pleiades. The reason they don't represent as dramatic an appearance as the Pleiades is because they are a whopping 7,000 light years away, much further away than the Pleiades, which means we see them not as they exist now, but as they existed 7,000 years ago.
However, like the Pleiades, the double cluster also consists of super hot blue-white stars, and through a pair of binoculars, you may be able to detect a few much cooler red ones.
And imagine, if you can, what the twin clusters of Perseus would look like if they could be magically positioned in our skies as close as the Seven Sisters are. They'd be a dazzling sight to see.
Speaking of dazzling stars, there are two in Perseus that we want you to check out. Let's go.
Okay, we still have our skies set to 11 p.m. on October 1st, and at the center of the constellation Perseus, you'll see a star named Merfak. Merfak is Arabic for elbow. German astronomer Johann Bayer named the star Alpha Persei. It's a supergiant star 590 light-years from Earth.
To the right of Merfak, we see Perseus holding something in his outstretched arm. To the ancient Greeks, it's the star Algol, aka the winking eye of Medusa. She's the Gorgon with snakes for hair.
But other cultures had some very frightening names for this star, like the Spectre's Head, Ghost's Head, Satan's Head, the Double Eye, and Dean's personal favorite, Piled Up Corpses. Why such scary names?
Well, Algol is no ordinary star. It's a special type of star called an eclipsing variable. Algol is really two stars that orbit each other. When the bigger, dimmer star blocks the light of the smaller, brighter star, Algol dims like clockwork every 2.87 days.
Perseus is using Medusa's head to save Princess Andromeda from a briny behemoth, the sea monster Cetus. Look farther to the southeast and you may be able to make out the sea monster.
His outline looks more like a recliner chair.
Nevertheless, this was Poseidon's vicious pet sea monster who we see turned to stone by Algol strikes again.
So, go outside and check out the Pleiades.
And the double cluster of Perseus, along with Merfak, his elbow,
And Algol, the winking eye of Medusa. It's all there when you keep looking up.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Marine forecast here. Along the coast, not too bad. Northwesterlies, 10 knots on the south coast, 15 knots up north, and seas running 6 to 8 feet. Lynn Canal, northern Lynn Canal, south 15, 3-foot seas. Same thing for Stevens Passage. Light southeasterlies for Clarence Strait. Saturday, northwest, light, still 10 knots for Clarence Strait with just 2-foot seas and light variable winds all the way up in the cross Lynn Canal, or they may be a little more southeasterly. And then along the coast here, west at 15, except the south coast more northwesterly, and seas down to 4 to 5 feet. Excuse me, for Prince William Sound, northeast at 15 tomorrow. Otherwise, the eastern North Gulf Coast, southeast at 15, turning east and then north, picking up to 20 knots here for the Barren Islands. And Cook Inlet northerlies 20 knots, 5-foot seas. Northwest 25 for Kachemak Bay with 9-foot seas. So small craft advisories there for sure. And then those fall back to 20, 7-foot seas on Saturday. About the same here for the Barren Islands. Lighter winds in store for Cook Inlet coming down to 10 knots, 2 to 3-foot seas. And basically light winds here for the western North Gulf Coast. Northwesterlies in Prince William Sound. Could be a few higher gusts here coming out of the bays. Turn northerly there for the Middleton Island marine zone. And for Kodiak Island, northwest 20 Shelikof Strait. Otherwise light there on the east side of the island, but from Sitkinak to Castle Cape, northwest 30 knots, higher gusts, 25-knot winds from the north across the Alaska Peninsula with 8-foot seas, and about the same there for Bristol Bay. And then those winds will be lighter definitely on Saturday there, down to 15 knots out of the northeast, northeast 20 the Alaska Peninsula, and southwest of Kodiak here, north at about 15 with 4-foot seas. And for the Fox Islands tomorrow, northerlies at 20 to 25 knots here. Again, highest over on Alaska Island, losing the gradient back to the west here as you get in under the ridge. 15 to 20 knots come down to 15 knots. Adak and Atkin, those seas laying down to 4 feet. And even less wind out here right under the ridge axis, north at 10 or variable, 3-foot seas. But coming up, especially in the afternoon, to 30 knots with 9-foot seas out west. Those will pick up even further. A full gale coming in on Saturday with seas approaching 20 feet out there. Gales advancing eastward to about Amchitka, past Kiska, and staying light though for Adak and Atka, but becoming south-southeast late in the day. And for the eastern Aleutians, northeasterlies at about 20 knots. with 5 to 6 foot seas. And for the southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, small craft advisories, 25 knots from the north, 7 foot seas, falling back to about 20 knots north of Nunivak Island, turning west at 15 for St. Lawrence Island. And around St. Matthew Island, we've got southwest at 20, north 15 for the Pribilofs. Outlook for Saturday, even lighter winds in store for the St. Paul, St. George area, down to 10 knots there under basically a ridge of high pressure all the way up to the southwest coast here, so northwest 15 south of Nunivak Island. But big increase in the winds now, edging westward. Gales coming across St. Matthew Island, south 35 knots in the afternoon, southwest coming up to 25 knots for St. Lawrence Island. And up along the eastern, or all of the Arctic coast, 30 knot winds in the forecast for tomorrow here from Cape Beaufort eastward to Demarcation Point. Just a little variation on the direction, but really not much at all southwest here on the east side. Otherwise, all westerly, and they'll seas 8 to 9 feet, and that high surf advisory out for the central and west coast until 7 p.m. Friday evening. Otherwise, west winds at 20 here down to the Bering Strait. And then for Saturday, west at 20, central coast turning south, southwest about 20 here on the west side down to Cape Thompson. From there, southward, small craft advisories, and also small craft advisories up to 30 knots as you get to the far eastern zone with those seas still at about 5 feet. And for tonight again, we got a trough moisture leading edge of some chillier air back to the west and northwest, drier as well. So that'll keep that south flow ahead of that thing, keep periods of rain in the North Gulf Coast, snow, wind going on up there along the central and western Arctic coast, and rain trying to move out of the panhandle. But it looks like still be some showers around, especially down south tomorrow, and some action back up through here for Sunday, or Saturday will be dropping in as we see right there. And then mostly sunny skies in store for southern Alaska. Warmer southwest winds as a warm front pushes northeastward into the up across the northwest interior with pretty windy conditions over the western Aleutians. Thanks for joining us.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.